So without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. So first off, we've got Saeed Amidi, who's the CEO and founder of Plug and Play, which is the world's largest innovation platform, bringing together the best startups, corporations, and investors to scale and accelerate new technologies. He's a serial entrepreneur and a seasoned executive with nearly 30 years experience founding and growing successful companies across 4 continents. Saeed is also one of Silicon Valley's most successful venture capitalists. He's investing in over 250 startups per year with notable exits, which include PayPal, Dropbox, Lending Club, and most recently Honey, which was in turn acquired by PayPal for $4 billion. Saeed's a global thought leader and a champion of open innovation with a real passion for inspiring and helping entrepreneurs and corporations bring about sustainable futures. Saeed, it's a pleasure to have you with us today.
It's great being with you. I am unable to start my video, but I'm sure it will be fixed soon.
No worries, we'll get the team onto it.
Okay, I got it.
Fantastic. And
great pleasure to be with you.
There we go, fantastic. And secondly, Felipe Bayon, the CEO of Ecopetrol Group, the largest oil and gas conglomerate in Colombia and one of the largest in Latin America. Mr. Bayon holds a degree in mechanical engineering from Universidad de los Andes and has over 20 years experience in the oil and gas industry. Before assuming his role as CEO in 2007, Mr. Bayon served as Ecopetrol's Chief Operating Officer, during which time he oversaw the upstream, midstream, downstream, technology, engineering, projects, and marketing operations, as well as research innovation. So he knows the entire life cycle of the industry. And prior to Ecopetrol, Mr. Bayon had a 20-year career at British Petroleum, BP, most recently serving as Senior Vice President of BP America and head of the Deepwater Response Group. In 2019, just last year, he was actually nominated by peer executives and awarded the Executive of the Year, receiving the award on behalf of all of Ecopetrol's employees. Felipe, it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning, and I'm hoping that we can bring you up on screen here.
Well, I can see myself on the video, Simon. It's great to be here. I'm very excited. Thanks for the invitation. And Saeed, good to see you. Very, very honored to be here with you this morning. Thanks for having me.
So much. I believe everything is working technology right now. Felipe, it's really a great pleasure to be with you. I don't know if I mentioned to you before, but roughly between 20 to 25 years ago, I spent some time in Bogota, in Colombia, visiting Bavaria, Postobon, Polaris, I believe, and Coca-Cola. That is in my journey of introducing bottled water business, especially in the large eco container. And I must admit, because at that time I was doing the same 5-gallon bottled water business in Japan, in France, and some of the smartest people I have ever met were in Colombia. Congratulations, you guys are both street smart and I feel very witty population. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, Saeed, thanks. And I'm very glad that you've had some connections with Colombia before. And I do believe that we have very, very talented people. People are very hardworking. Entrepreneurship, which is one of the things that you master, is one of the things that people wanted to hear. And that's why I think it's so important for us to be able to provide some of the platforms that people can use to leverage and basically build on that. And I myself lived outside of Colombia for more than 13 years. I came back 4 years ago, and I'm always pleasantly surprised with the amount of talent and commitment that people have in the countryside.
Wonderful. This series of discussion which I had with like Mayor of Houston, Mayor Park of Seoul, Korea, or the president of Shell Oil in Germany. It's all about leadership through challenging times. And specifically, I think at Ecopetrol, you're dealing with multiple challenges at the same time. The COVID-19, the health of your employees, as well as the oil prices. How do you prioritize your day? How do you mobilize your team to go after these challenges?
So I think, Said, the first thing that we need to acknowledge as leaders is that we ourselves, we don't have all the answers for everything. So we rely on teams and networking and creating these ecosystems that will allow us to do the right things at the right time. So we're very disciplined as an industry. We've gone through different crises, you know, back in the 90s, in 08, 09, financial crisis, 15, 16, related to our part of the business. But this one has been unprecedented, you know. It's something that, and you and I have chatted before, it touched everybody around the world. When you think that more than half or 4.5 billion people are in lockdown, demand has been destroyed dramatically, the economies are suffering, and we have a health and economic and eventually social crisis. So we need to rely on people, we need to rely on leadership, we need to let go and properly, people that are accountable need to be delegated. We need to trust people, you know, and in that sense is ensuring that even if we don't have all the data, we need to make decisions. We need to act quickly, and especially because our first priority or top priority is protecting the health and the life of our employees and working with those communities in which we operate. Out of the 1,000 municipalities in Colombia, we're present in 330 of those. So we're very present. We go very deep into the communities. So I think it's a combination of that, you know, ensuring that we don't know everything, that we need to move quickly. And this is a very humbling experience. You know, it's a time for solidarity and empathy.
You know, and as one of the leading companies, perhaps the largest company in Colombia, everybody looks to you for leadership. You know, maybe even in other businesses, they look to you to have this stability, as well as I have read you're very proud of being transparent, at the same time focus and try to change with the challenges of today. Can you remember one of the examples of your being able to be open and transparent, but at the same time make some decisions quickly?
Yes, absolutely, Said. And I think, just very quick context, we have 300,000 shareholders, and the biggest shareholder is the government. But we indirectly, through the pension funds, touch every day 16 million Colombians. That's a third of the population. So we have a lot of skin in the game, you know, when we wake up and we need to do what we need to do every day. So one of the examples that it's quite close to our hearts is we had one of our employees died of COVID-19 back in April. We had to react very quickly, and there were voices that said, you need to shut down refineries. You need to shut down everything. And have we done that, we would have basically stepped on the brakes for the country, because we need to provide the gasoline, the gas, you know, for people to transport, for the ambulances, for the fire trucks, for the real heroes to do what they need to do for food deliveries. But we did something, we called in for help, and we used experts from the National Health Institute. They had a rapid deployment team. They went in, looked at our protocols, changed some of the things. They actually said, look, you're doing all the right things. And we communicated that very, very quickly using technology. We're far away physically, but technology has allowed us to communicate more quickly. So we use technology, we talk to our staff. We actually said, look, we understand you're apprehensive. There's fear, there's worries. And even in less than 4 weeks, we installed, and it's operational, a biological molecular lab, and we're doing our own PCR testing for ourselves and for the community. So it's being transparent, communicating, saying, look, we need to learn quickly, act quickly, but being very open about how we're doing things.
I mean, that is an incredible example. And so far in Plug and Play and our operations in Europe, we have had several cases, but thank God we haven't had, any death. But dealing with these challenge like you did, it's really what it takes, because you cannot shut down the country. You cannot shut down the plant. I recall one of our top automotive partners, like we have Mercedes, Porsche, but this company, Webesco, dealt with the COVID-19 as a first company in Germany. And, again, you have to always balance the health and the well-being of people first. But I think this crisis has taught us to, as you said, work with the data, but you have to make a decision. You cannot wait and analyze it for a month or two. It will be too late.
Yeah.
And, talking about making decisions, can you tell me a little bit about your digital transformation? You mentioned, I don't know, I think you said 70% of your colleagues are now working remotely. Did you ever imagine this could be possible? And what could be the learning from this experience?
Well, Said, I think it's a very good question, and I mean, very quickly, I would say, I would have not thought this was possible. It seemed undoable. And I use a phrase that obviously many people have used in history, but I said, look, at Ecopetrol, we need to make it possible what's impossible. We need to move in that direction. And we've been investing in the digital transformation for the best part of 2.5 years or 3 years. I mean, we've had systems all our lives, and some specialized software for doing exploration, and you name it, or linear planning, or programming the loads to the refineries. But over the last 2.5 years, we've really invested in this, and I think it's the mindset that has changed. I was able to visit Plug and Play back in the fall last year, two times in 2 weeks, with half and half of my management team. It was over 50 people. And it was not necessarily the technology or the software or the apps or whatever. It was the culture, and one of the things that I brought back from Silicon Valley and from you guys was, you need to allow yourself to be able to fail quickly and react quickly and learn. And to your point, you don't have all the data. I think the other thing was around beliefs and behaviors. And that's one common thing I saw in Silicon Valley. So we brought that back. And I think the transformation has helped us. For example, we did our first AGM, something that has been done for long times. We had normally 5,000 or 6,000 shareholders in one venue, physically sitting in one venue. Well, this is back in the 27th of March, when there was limitations on the number of people that could gather. It was 1,000, then 500, then 100, then nobody. So we did it all virtually. We had 8,000 connections, and we had 135,000 people watching us on live TV. And I say, wow, and people would have said, well, the technology for voting, for the quorum, for everything, it worked. So when we push ourselves, I think we're able to unlock some of that potential, change the paradigms, and demonstrate that it's possible to do the impossible.
Yeah, You know, in fact, you touched a very interesting point. You know, I have some friends who help to build Google, you know, who help to build LinkedIn. And when I talk to them and I say, okay, the technology is important, but they try to squeeze 20 years of business development, of serving their client into 2 years. And when you try to do that, you have to work collaboratively, you have to work fast, you have to pivot if you're making a mistake. Like some people say, in Silicon Valley, you just try to eliminate as many mistakes as you can make because you're going so fast and you have to make so many decisions fast that you just try to navigate the journey of entrepreneurship, innovation, and what we call open innovation.
Yeah.
You know, I know that as a large company in Colombia, you have also social responsibility to help provide energy to all the families, but also are you helping the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Colombia? Because I have a very nice little company called Rappi that I invested in 5 years ago, and I love to find the next Rappi together. Can you tell us about how you're supporting the ecosystem?
So absolutely, Said. So some of the things that we've done, we're working with Impulsa, which is the agency in government that actually is helping all these efforts. And we've partnered with them in Se Emprende in Bogota. And we've actually have a physical space there so we can, I mean, it's not working right now as part of the COVID-19 response, but it can still work virtually, right? But we've launched something that it's 100 times 100. So we've launched 100 challenges for 100 entrepreneurs in Colombia. And we've already sort of defined some of the solutions to some of those challenges. For example, how can we better account for our staff and people when we need to evacuate a facility? So the local talent has helped us develop those answers. So we're working on that. Or how do we deal with things around health, safety, and the environment? Or how do we deal with things like remotely monitoring pipelines in the middle of the jungle in the mountain ranges, where we have sometimes people stealing, you know, the products from the pipeline. So all of that technology is being developed. Or one of the other examples is with Ruta N in Medellin. Very, very proud of that because Medellin is a city that has suffered from bad air quality for a very long time. So 2.5 years ago, we did a big push to improve the quality of our gasolines and diesels, you know, and reduce the amount of sulfur. But right now, we've launched with yourselves, you know, and with Ruta N, and we're partnering and saying, what's the big solution or the next big thing in terms of air quality? We're looking at that. Or we're looking at things like fugitive emissions, you know, one of the deal flows that we're working with you guys. So it's how can we leverage on your experience, for example, plug and play, the needs that we have, you know, in terms of our social responsibility, the investments, the environment, you know, reducing our carbon footprint, for example, or reducing emissions, but then ensuring that through that we can bring some of the entrepreneurs in country and raise that level and ensure there's opportunity and create that ecosystem side.
Wonderful. You know, like you talked about challenges, you know, we work with Lloyd's Register, one of the oldest companies in the world, 300 years plus, in challenging how we can make the shipping line safer. How can we make the ocean exploration safer? And you'd be very, I mean, our audience would be very surprised that some technologies that work for IoT and mobility is very much transferable to safety. You know, in Colombia, we work with Claro, Aval, we work with Dabivela, and we feel the power of this platform is when you have large corporations, sometimes even governments like Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Industry, universities, and entrepreneurs all collaborating together. It is really like magic when you see this collaborative and open innovation. And, you know, we've been able to do it well in Sao Paulo, and we hope with your help, with our other corporate partners in Colombia, we can support. I love your 100 for 100 challenges. I would love to challenge my colleague and our team and your team to support 100 startups per year out of Colombia. And, you know, again, I want to, like, I was very excited that you use blockchain to monitor the molecules.
Yes.
It is great. I mean, like, you know, I love your open mind and open attitude. And can you tell me maybe one more, because when I had the board of director of Mercedes and their C-suite visit me 4 years ago, they told me, Saeed, the electrification, the autonomous, and the connected car is moving so fast that even with our 70,000 engineers, we cannot keep up. And that is why they are connecting with entrepreneurs to build new products and new technologies faster, better, cheaper. Do you feel we could do this in oil and gas industry, and more specifically in Colombia with you? And I know you're active in US now, Brazil. What advice do you have for the entrepreneurs to how to work with Ecopetrol and your different technology needs?
So I think the answers, definitely we are part of that ecosystem. I think we have a very big responsibility. That's how we view ourselves. I'll give you very, very quick examples, but two years ago, we didn't have any bots helping us. And I remember the first one that we created was Betty, you know, and it was created in-house, and it helped employees get refunds for their schooling support for their families. And it worked very well. And I told this story at a leadership conference, and I said, well, let me present Betty to you. We have over 100 now working. So people see, wow, this is making my life better. This is getting me to a better place. It's allowing me, it's giving me more time to think, which is great. But those developments are done with entrepreneurs. So there's an ecosystem where we go out of the company. We don't have all that expertise. So we pull in the resources and we work. So people need to be sort of in the loop or having their radar where we are in terms of, for example, the 100 times 100 challenge or some of the internal developments. And actually, I met an entrepreneur that came in to work with Ecopetrol, and I said, wow, you know, you're out there and you're doing your own thing. Why are you coming back? And I said, because you guys are leading on this. So I want to be part of that change. So the answer is yes. Your example of us tracking with blockchain the molecules from the wellhead to the port, it was something that some of our partners, technological partners, said, wow, that's never been done. Well, we're almost there in terms of rolling that out. So it's creating, I think, better working conditions for people. There is apprehension. People say, I'm going to lose my job, you know, and things like that. But I think we need to be more open in that space, Saeed.
Yeah, you know, and in fact, I believe this power of having entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs be closer to the conglomerates is win-win for everybody. Because the big corporations can see that small, nimble teams can build product and services fast, then you need the power of the big corporation to scale. So if you have good communication together, everybody wins. And really, we at Plug and Play, we pride ourselves. Somebody explained to me like the big Ecopetrol is like a tanker and a startup is like a speedboat, but you have to have them work on the same language, same platform. And that is really when we find somebody like you, Felipe, is a joy, because you have the desire to take advantage of this technology and innovations and implement it in a large scale. And it's not easy. Can you tell me like one of the challenges you faced when you wanted to work with entrepreneurs or startup? Because, you know, I know that you're still owned partially or majority by the government. You had some ministers on your board of directors. So it's kind of hard to do everything you want to do with some of the regulation. But can you tell me some of the challenges you have dealt with?
So I think first inside, government has been very supportive of entrepreneurship, you know, and ensuring that Colombia can thrive in that space. As part of Colombia going into the OECD, some of the ministers that sat on the board are not on the board or in the board anymore. So corporate governance is very clear. And we are run in that sense like an independent company, if you will. You know, obviously the government continues to be the biggest shareholder. But I think one of the biggest challenges is with culture, because here we need to protect what we've been doing for a very long time, you know, which is produce oil and gas. And as we go forward, more and more and more gas, that it's environmentally more friendly. But I think that providing energy to people is one of the strongest ways to close the social gaps we have in the country. But as we're doing that, we're transitioning energy. So we're into renewables. We're our biggest self-generating company of power in the country. So we have 5% installed capacity that is renewables. We're going to 20% by 2020. So we're installing solar farms in our operation. So people say, wow, you know, you're producing oil with solar energy? I said, absolutely. It reduces emissions and it's saving me money. It's great, great business. So challenges, I think, are largely to do with the culture. It's back to this notion of being your beliefs, your behaviors, and ensuring that you can feel safe when you fail and you need to recover. One last thing, Said, I was once told, hey, Mr. Bayon, do you acknowledge or do you actually know that you're from the pre-internet era? It was not a compliment, you know? And I said, wow, you know, that means that I need to learn faster to be in par with that speedboat that you were mentioning, or sometimes unlearn things so I can learn new things. I need to be open to that, and culture is fundamental.
Yes, you know, I absolutely agree with you. And, you know, people, especially by, you know, coincident, I came to Northern California 40 years ago, going to Menlo College, which is like a small business school. And they told me this is like the back door to Stanford, but I never found a door. But nevertheless, I was lucky enough to have an office on University Avenue. And if people tell me, Said, what is special about Silicon Valley? I think it's, of course, Stanford and Berkeley, but it's the culture of being open-minded and trying new things. like you mentioned, sometimes you have to forget about your old ways to be able to open new ways. And the culture of failure is okay, and my recommendation to a lot of my corporate partner, and now with offices in Paris, Germany, Stuttgart, Beijing, I said, you cannot duplicate what Silicon Valley is. You have to build your own ecosystem, but at the same time, you can be connected to Silicon Valley for raising money, for scaling your business. And again, I think in the oil and gas business, similar to the automotive business, every industry is going through transformation at an incredible speed. And this COVID-19, if it had any positive thing, is that you can transform faster if you have to. And if I can also ask, was there any other learning you had? And if it may even personal, because still my wife loves me, and we've been together now 4 months in the same house. And that was a relearning how to live together like 24 hours a day. Is there any other learning, personal or business, you could share with our audience?
So I think, and I was mentioning earlier, I think this moment in life is like a big test, and we've had to go back to basics. What's important, what's relevant, what's the priority. And again, if I can, and responsibilities on me, if I take care of myself, I can allow others to do what they need to do, which is, again, go and work the refineries and work the fields, and all my respect and support for them. But I think it's that, what you were mentioning, we're here in the house, with the family, which is great. With all the traveling and long days, we had missed some of that, and having just a conversation around dinner table, it's something that we had lost, and without everybody looking at their phones, and just reconnecting, and going back to the essentials. And I'll just mention, Said, my soon-to-be 16-year-old daughter is sitting next to me. She's here listening to the conversation and that's something that I would have never imagined, if I was back in the office. So I think I'm very optimistic. I think we still have a long ways to go in terms of getting out of the crisis and recovering. But I think this can help us as an opportunity, to make the best of us go out and help others, and be more, have more empathy and more solidarity as well.
You're absolutely right. Before I bring back Simon to answer some of the audience question, I wanted to mention to you that year 2020 for Plug and Play and for me was the year of sustainability. We launched the Alliance to End Plastic Waste with the Alliance Group of the largest oil companies and petroleum companies in the world. And now, because of COVID-19, we are expanding both sustainability and environmental impact with social impact. And again, for me, this, as you said, my daughter, Sophie, who is 21, inspired me that, Said, you have to use your connection, your entrepreneurs to make a better world. And I really, really hope this COVID-19 keeps this social and environmental initiatives up front and focus for us.
Agree, fully agree.
Wonderful, wonderful. Simon, would you like to join us and see if there is any questions from audience for Felipe?
Absolutely, and thanks so much, gentlemen. There's been with over 600 people on the line, we've had a whole slew of questions coming in. So to our audience, we'll do our best to get to most of them. So Felipe, the first one I thought was a really good one, which was if 1 year ago you had a magic wand that could tell the future, a crystal ball that could tell the future, what would you have done differently, knowing everything that has come our way with COVID?
Yeah, thanks, Simon, and thanks for the question. I think that especially you're never ready, I think, or we were never ready to deal with some of the emotional and psychological aspects of this. You know, just for context, more than 50% of the working people in Colombia don't have social security or health systems. So our employees are very fortunate in that sense. So we want to protect employment. But we've actually have done a lot of work around psychological support and helping people. Said was mentioning 4 months with your wife is something that you need to get used to again. So that's something that I think I would have accelerated quite a bit. And the other big thing is we're all struggling with remote work right now. A lot of the moms, for example, the women, they're telling us, look, I want to be able to take care of my kids. I need to prepare the lunch or food or whatever. I don't want to commute for 2 hours a day. I want to stay 100% remote. But do we have the ergonomics? Do we have the technology? So that's one of the things that I would have sort of pushed. You know, I had the opportunity of attending a conversation with Bill Gates, and he talked about a pandemic 5 years ago. And they asked him, so how do you feel right now? And he said, look, I should have been more vocal about it, you know, and pushy. And the worry is not pandemic number 1, but what are we going to do when pandemic number 2, 3 or 4 years down the road comes? So I think we need to seize this opportunity. And again, with the likes of your ecosystems, how can we do things better?
That's great. And there's actually a number of questions here around what you believe will be things about that you've had to do by necessity due to the crisis that you think that you'll keep going forward.
So I think remote working is one of them. I tell my execs, you know, and we now have a crisis exec meeting every day, with the exception of Sundays. And I asked them, so how many of you have used a printer in the last 3 months? No one. We're all using DocuSign or whatever, you know, the appropriate system for everybody here. But I said, guys, whenever we go back to the offices and in the shape as we go back to the office, which we don't know yet, you won't find any printers because we don't need them anymore. So it's those things, that very quick changes that we need to do. But I think remote working is a big deal. We've been, I think, able to see that we can work remotely. So I talked to my exploration guys, and they for 30, 40 years, they had these big computers and massive computing capacity under their desk, each one, you know, and they needed to be like that with their equipment. They're all working from the cloud. So we've done this over the last 18 months. And savings, we've invested a little bit over $3 million, and we've already saved close to $8 million, not billion, M million, in the first months of the year. So it's doable, but we need to push ourselves. I think remote working is a big thing, you know, ensuring that we can work differently and we can be more efficient, and we can still be safe, efficient, ethical, and transparent.
That's great, and I think that really dovetails into this other question around. Said, you had a question.
I can add, Felipe, to your point. You know, for the first 2 weeks of shutdown, yeah, I was in shock and awe, and we sort of delayed a couple of events because we do 600 events a year. I mean, that's like 2 a day. This is globally.
Yeah.
Then we clicked on and we said, let's do everything virtually. And we just that change of mind, like we talked about change of culture or change of mind. Now when, like I remember really well, we wanted to do a little event in Chicago. we had 22 different corporations online, and it was so collaboratively. I mean, like it was almost better than physical.
Yeah.
So I think, like what you said, if we change our mind that it's possible to build a relationship, get business done, get, quite frankly, startups to work with big corporations. Like, if I can also share with you, we had a Fiat Chrysler deal flow that we had the tier one supplier Yangfin also in the room with the startup. So it was a startup technology that the OEM wanted, and the system, the tier one supplier was going to implement it. And you could do that, but it would take 10 people to fly somewhere. Now we were able to do it remotely, and now we are promoting this multiple corporation and VCs looking at the same startup challenges at the same time.
I fully agree.
But it can open a lot of new doors for us. Go ahead, Simon.
We've got a really good question here around digital transformation. Felipe, you mentioned you're making it possible to do the impossible. And I think in a recent interview, you had spoken about having 600 transformation projects across the company and making transformation part of the DNA. And both of you were talking about culture. So the question here is, what practices have you put in place to stimulate this innovative culture within Ecopetrol? Maybe there's processes that you've put into place as well to support that.
So one of the things that we did recently, we relaunched after more than 5 or 7 years, our webpage, our internet, and everything else. So traditionally, you would have taken, I don't know, 12 months to do that. So we brought our digital guys, and a lot of respect for Ernesto Gutierrez, our vice president for that area, who's brought that with him, you know, that mindset. So we brought the digital team with the comms guys and the guys who would normally do that. And it was done in weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. You know, it was agile, it was disruptive, it was open, it was different. So just being able to bring that method in and applying it differently, it's good. So for example, traditionally, we need every month to close the accounts. And for that, we need to close the volumetrics. How much production, how much sales, everything. That would take us 2 or 3 weeks and 150 people having very long days and long nights. The last closing, we did it in 3 days, 150 people remotely. So it's just, and again, saying, look, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. Let's bring somebody else. And in that, I think and again, my recognition, acknowledgement to the guys from the digital group that are pushing us constantly to look at things differently, you know, from technology point of view, but also from how we behave.
There's actually a question here from, I believe, one of Ecopetrol's employees. They said that basically the employees are extremely excited about digital transformation. How can we, the Ecopetrol employees, make it real and learn how to behave and work with startups? So,
and I'll use one example. You know, we are in oil and gas. We're like dinosaurs. You know, we're very, very antique or vintage. Some people would say that sounds better. But so I remember when I was appointed CEO in 2017. Everybody would come to our meetings in the mornings or Monday mornings with folders and papers, you know, and clumsily bringing everything in. So I started showing up with an iPad or a tablet. That's it. And it took a lot, you know, because no paper. Well, now everybody's using everything digitally. So everything's on the cloud. I use the systems, you know. I don't use paper anymore. And that was a big change. And now, 2 years later, people say, oh, well, that's how we work. Well, it wasn't 3 or 4 years ago. So back to the employees first, I want people to be able to allow for the change to happen. And don't worry, you know, you may be afraid, but open up and allow yourself to think differently and test things. and use the technology and use the apps. For example, we're now working with the government for an app that we can report on a daily basis any symptoms around COVID-19. And we can use that to see where people are, and we can trace people, you know, and it's been very, very positive. So we need to sort of let go, open up. We will fail sometimes, we will fail, but we need to fail quickly, you know, and we need to very quickly. Our business is a business of risk. Out of every 10 wells that we drill in exploration, maybe 3 or 4 are successful. And that's a very, very high number. So we know how to deal with risk. We just need to think a bit differently. And great thing, you know, when we see the younger people in the office and everybody say, look, they're pushing us, you know, and we need to learn from them.
Felipe, you mentioned the dinosaurs. I cannot hold back. Can you tell me what is behind the logo of Ecopetrol? I think it's a very colorful logo, but what is the meaning behind it?
So it's an iguana, you know, I think you see
and
the
I
iguana.
see it even in your bookshelf behind you.
Yeah, there's a beautiful iguana in the back. And iguana is an animal that's typical from Colombia, some other countries as well. But it's part of that link that we have with the communities, with the nature. We want to do the things in the right way. You know, I actually tell my people, we're neighbors in those communities. Our people go and live there and shop there, and their kids go to school. So over a decade ago, there was an internal work, and the iguana was chosen because it was that message of, we can do things sustainably. We can protect what we have right now. We're part of the backbone of the country in terms of our royalties, are the taxes, and providing well-paid jobs and working with communities and investing in those communities. But we are also part of that transition into the future in terms of reducing our carbon footprint, reducing emissions, you know, sustainability, the energy transition, you know. And for example, we have the Instituto Colombiano del Petróleo, which is the Colombian Petroleum Institute, that eventually will change its name at some stage to the Instituto of Energy, you know, the Energy Institute. But we have the largest number of PhDs in country. And these guys are working with advanced materials, nanotechnology, lots of very, very cool things. And at some stage, Said, we'll need to ensure that we can create more linkage between them and you guys. But it's part of that future, you know. We'll be here in different shape, 10, 15, 20 years, and we'll adapt. We'll adapt.
Wonderful. Back to you, Simon.
Fantastic. I thought you were going to mention something about moving off note-taking with a pencil to an iPad, Said.
They still consider me very old-fashioned, you know.
Look, we actually have a lot of. Pardon me, Felipe. We actually have a lot of questions coming in from folks from other companies, startups, industry, academia around the energy transition. And perhaps you could talk a little bit about which technologies you're seeing are going to be the most important for enabling that transition. There are also some questions around jobs, you know, retraining, is it upskilling? And maybe you could talk just a little bit about Ecopetrol's point of view, your point of view on that.
Okay, so energy transition, I said earlier, we want to be gassier as a company. We want to produce more gas. So there's a lot of focus on that. So today, more than 10 million households in Colombia use gas every day, which is brilliant. But there's still 1.5 million families that use wood or coal every day. So we need to move in that direction. Biofuels are important, renewables in terms of solar and wind, and we've committed ourselves to install 300 megawatts of renewables for our own power generation by 2022. And you know, very quickly, but this renewable solar plant that we installed, 29% of the people that worked there were women. And a lot of them, it was the first time they ever worked. You know, and they would tell us, you know, I visited that plant many times, and they said, look, now that we are working on it, us, our husband, we actually know where the money is going. So how can we give some of that back to the communities in terms of retraining? So there's a lot of online opportunities right now, and we actually have a Ecopetrol University. It's a virtual university, and we've partnered with more than 32 universities. So we provide courses all year long, you know, and people can take them at their own speed. So the offers there. I think the important thing here, Simon, is that we need to acknowledge that our destiny needs to be on our hands. And what that means, we need to own our development and how we actually pursue opportunities as individuals, but then how we give back and we bring others with us.
You know, Felipe, you pointed out education and retraining. You know, I think what we have learned of working remotely, if we add layer of retraining and education on top of it, I think it can be incredible, powerful during this digital transformation. And they are right. Simon is right. I still, even though I'm very digital, I still like paper. So they all make fun of me, you know, but I just make notes to myself.
I'm like you. I still make notes. Don't worry.
Okay.
Well, and you also have a memory like no one else. And I think there's actually some research that supports writing things down for remembering. So it's not all, you know, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Felipe, I think we're nearly up to our time, but we have a bunch of questions. Say, here's one from Manuel, and he said, look, he's a bachelor's in geology. He's been thinking about roles of geoscientists in the oil and gas industry in the future. There's been some startups talking about, look, we're interested in blockchain, crypto technologies. How do people think about getting involved in the innovation ecosystem with Ecopetrol? Is there an intake? How are you thinking about processes and engaging with entrepreneurs, new scientists, these kinds of things?
So I think one of the things that I mentioned, which is the 100 times 100, you know, the 100 challenges for 100 entrepreneurs. So I'd ask people, look, be on the look for things, or have on your radar Ecopetrol. On our webpage, you know, there's people that you can contact there. You can write to us. You can write directly to me, you know, and I'll direct you to the right people, you know. My email is felipe.bayon@ecopetrol.com.co, you know. And again, we need to be open, and a lot of the things is open code and open source, and we'll continue to do that. And actually, one of the things that I think is important, we want to learn from you guys as well. You know, how you guys as entrepreneurs, I'm talking to the broader audience, you see things, you know, how should we approach things differently? We need to learn as well, you know, from others.
That's great. Saeed, we have what time for just one more, so over to you.
No, thank you so much, Felipe. It is great getting to know you better during this fireside chat. And generally, like I say, if you had one or two messages for the audience, more than ever, I say it's time for entrepreneurs to build their dream company. That is sort of like my message. What would be your message to the audience?
So Saeed, and thanks again for the opportunity. I could have stayed here all day long. You know, I have a board meeting later on, but I could have stayed here, preferred to stay here. Enjoyed very much the conversation. And I think we're going to an unprecedented crisis. It's going to be tough. It's going to last longer. But I think it's time not only for entrepreneurship, but also for a lot of empathy, humanity, solidarity. And I think we'll recover. You know, we need to be stronger. We need to be humble, but I'll ask people, look, follow your dreams. Don't give up. If you fail quickly, you know, but there's a lot of opportunity, and the world, everybody in the world, we will all need all the good energy and commitment and hard work from people like the people in this call today to make sure that we can bring the world back to even a better place from where we were some months ago.
I really appreciate that, Felipe. Thank you so much. And looking forward to seeing you soon in Colombia or in California. Thank you.
Thanks, Saeed. Have a great one. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, everyone.
Beautiful.